Okay, now the subject matter is electromagnetic weapons, electronic weapons. This isn't my photograph. This is a photograph I found on Google, and it seems as though somebody is presenting themselves as to have found this weapon on somebody who was on their property. This picture reminds me a lot of what's known as the zip gun. The zip gun used to be used a lot back in the era of the 60s and 70s, especially, where young teenagers in the inner city, they would sit down and make their own gun. It was only one shot, but they would make their own gun. And if it hit you, you could die, you'd be greatly injured. So that's exactly what this reminds me of. An individual who sat down and created this themselves. Almost everybody I know who has gone through gang stalking always talks about electronical weapons, even if they have never. Some of them maybe have not experienced it, but they still talk about it. But the majority of the people who talk about it, who get gang stalked, have experienced electronical weapons. Electronical weapons, to me, are a big factor in gang stalking because that's where the bucks come in at. These things are bought and sold and traded, yada yada yada. So you see, there's a network. There's a money thing there. I mean, there's an economic worth to this type of stuff. Now, there's two factors. There's people who speak of electronical weapons coming from satellites. I showed a clip with Jesse Ventura, how he spoke to a man who said, yeah, people are hearing voices from the voice tech. Other people have spoke about the satellites being used to do certain sort of stuff to people. I totally believe that. But you could be at a workplace and have somebody use an electronical weapon on you. It can happen in your home. A neighbor could be using an electronical weapon on you. It can happen to you, especially in a situation where you can be close to others without you seeing them. If they can be close to you and you don't have to see them, that's when they use this type of stuff the most. And again, this is a pulse gun. From my experience of electronical weapons, it's mostly radiation type weapons. Usually the person who's doing this type of stuff, it's explained to them that the weapon is not going to harm you. That's not true. These weapons are very harmful to people. They're very painful. I've experienced it myself on multiple occasions, and it's not a joke. These weapons are real, and they're very dangerous, and they're harmful to people. So if you know have somebody use an electronical weapon against you, that's a very serious thing. It's not a laughing matter. Getting into gang stalking in general, the reason why electronical weapons are so harmful to an individual is because they're already experiencing multiple things as it is. You're talking about constant, street theater, being followed. If you're going through covert drugging, you have people drugging you. The electronic. So you're already going through a charade of multiple things to begin with anyway. So that's why the electronical weapons are such a nefarious type of thing, because you're dealing with people who are constantly group stalked anyway. And the electronical weapon factor is there to purposely try to set the person off. When I first started having electronical weapons used against me, I didn't even know it. I had no idea in the world. And my behavior was changing. I was becoming more angry, more agitated. I was having outbursts that didn't make sense. And I was doing a lot of things that were abnormal behavior because of the fact that I was being targeted with an electronical weapon. Then on top of that, there was already gang stalking going on anyway. So it made it way worse. So an individual who's going through a series of electronical attacks from electronical weapons, their behavior may escalate rapidly, and it may seem very irrational. The individuals doing this, they know that. They know what they're doing. And they're trying to escalate a person in a certain path. It's very interesting. I think a lot of the behavior that goes on with people getting gang stalked, where you hear about individuals going and getting a gun and going out and shooting a bunch of people, I can definitely see that if somebody, especially if somebody's in the confusion stage of being gang stalked, and then on top of it, you got the electronic weapons. I can see somebody going, like a situation where you saw like back in the 80s with the McDonald's massacre or something like that. I can definitely see an individual going through that, and it's not happening because the individual is unbalanced or irrational. It's happening because the individual is being bombarded with an extremely irrational charade of events. So you gotta remember, humans are animals. You know, if you put people in a corner, they'll react a lot differently. So this is a very interesting subject, electronic weapons, and you can find tons of information on the internet about it.